Welcome to day 3 of RedTech Radio Week. Wherever you are in the world watching us, thank you for joining us for this third day of an incredible week of amazing discussions that are really just here to help you as a radio manager, whatever the situation is in your market, deal with the most critical strategic challenges that you are facing. We spent the first 2 days on management and strategy, learning on day 1 how to compete effectively for a share of attention among younger listeners in this age of TikTok, where so many are distracted by options, endless options. Day 2 was about building an effective on-demand strategy for radio. And both those panels, if you missed them live, are available on www.redtech.pro. And you can watch them, and they're going to stay there. We're not going to remove them ever. Today's session is also a strategic one. We look at how new and emerging technologies are helping radio stations compete more effectively for audiences, how innovation is creating new ways to grow advertising revenue and prove return on investment for advertisers. And very importantly, in a world of increased competition and rising inflation, technology's role in helping to run a radio operation more efficiently at lower cost without compromising quality. So there's a big bundle of stuff that we're going to be talking about today, all of which is critical strategically for those discussions that you're having with your board, your strategy as you prepare your radio business for the next year and the next 3 to 5 years. Panel of experts today. Udit Tyagi is the Chief Digital Officer at Indian audio network Mirchi, with radio stations across India. It's a division of India's largest media conglomerate, the Times Group. Udit started his career as a business analyst for an internet software company before moving into product management at an internet business, and then joining the Times of India digital division in November 2013. Since then, he's moved steadily up the ranks, and he now holds what I believe to be the most critical digital role in the group, driving the digital strategy for their audio holdings. Paul Cramer is Managing Director, Enterprise Broadcast Solutions at Veritone. Prior to this, he spent almost a decade at Triton Digital. Now, Paul's expertise is comprehensive and varied, from artificial intelligence operating systems and applications to traditional and digital ad technologies, the delivery, measurement, and monetization of digital audio, and even CMS, loyalty, contesting, and research. And today his passion is driving AI innovation and adoption in the media and entertainment sector. And finally, Antonio Archidiacono. I knew I was going to get this wrong. Antonio Archidiacono. Is that right? Close enough? You help me if I'm wrong. He's the European Broadcasting Union CTO and CIO. But here's the fascinating bit. He was a mission manager for the European Space Agency. Does that make you a rocket scientist, Antonio? I don't know.
Not really.
No, not really. That was in the late 1980s before joining Eutelsat, where he worked for 28 years as the Director of Innovation. The European Broadcasting Union brought him back to Earth in 2018 when he joined as CTO and CIO. He's now based in Geneva, and he supports all EBU members in their digital transformation efforts, and he chairs the 5G Media Action Group. He also holds 20 patents. So you can hear from that introduction, this is a heavyweight panel. And like me, I can't wait to benefit from their insights and expertise. But before we ask these experts how technology is helping to solve the most pressing strategic challenges in radio broadcasting, you need to know that you're able to watch this panel at absolutely no charge, and that's courtesy of Veritone. Let's take 2 minutes to learn how Veritone is making a difference to its radio clients around the world.
Veritone uses advanced AI technology to identify and transcribe every spoken word in your broadcast in real time. Then with a few keystrokes, you can quickly grab air checks for any station content, including earned media. For instance, if I want to find everywhere we've mentioned brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts, I simply search and can play the time-stamped results.
Brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts, America runs on Dunkin'.
I can then trim, download, or share the results with staff or clients. What's best, since the AI is always listening to your stations, it can begin to automatically recap campaigns and even alert you when it hears content on air you want to track. These results are used to create powerful recap reports that combine earned media with Nielsen data, so your sellers get full credit for the true value your station brand delivers. This shows the effective cost per mention and CPM are more competitive than advertisers realize, and encourages them to use radio in the media mix more often. For lower funnel campaigns, Veritone Attribute makes it easy to demonstrate the increases in web traffic and visitors advertisers receive from radio advertising within a few minutes of hearing a radio ad. You can optimize the campaign by overlaying the ad schedule on top of the incremental web traffic the advertiser is receiving, track responses to pre-recorded spots versus live mentions, and even A/B test 2 pieces of creative. This enables your team to demonstrate and take credit for the response radio is driving, and to optimize the campaign to maximize advertiser ROI, resulting in more renewals.
Thank you, Veritone. Now, let me start with you, Udit. You work in India. You have a station network that's over 70 stations strong, so it's very widespread across the subcontinent in India. How is technology playing a role in helping Mirchi solve its biggest strategic challenges?
So, technology is playing a very pivotal role. In fact, the sense is that, we principally say that specifically in this part of the world, say till about 2 years back or 3 years back, internet was all about publishing. For the past 3 or 4 years, it's been all about OTTs. And now is the time for audio. So technology is playing a pivotal role in providing whatever was available for video-based setups to be available for audio-based setups. And that's the biggest thing, which is a boon as well as it's a struggle. Because yes, technology is moving in that direction where we can leverage the kind of solutions we used to provide on OTT-based setups, but still there is not as much competition and as many solutions that currently an OTT-based client would have compared to anybody who's trying to service users through the medium of audio.
That's what's really important about what you said, because it's got to come up in the discussion later. And I just want to preface it for those who are watching from wherever in the world. We do want to understand what solutions radio stations are still looking for that aren't yet created, aren't yet invented. So you've kind of touched on that, and I want you to remember that point because we're going to come back to it later. Antonio, you represent a very vast number of members, 69 members, 56 countries across Europe at the EBU. They all at different levels of maturity around their digital journey, their digital strategy. What are the biggest strategic challenges that some of your members are dealing with? And when you think about technology's role, can you give us some insights on how it's being dealt with?
Sure. So, if we look at the situation in Europe at the moment, the vast majority of our members are still in live linear broadcasting in FM. And there is a large number of them that now has been also starting transmissions on using the AB+. And at home, listening is the main consumption of radio, even if in my own country, in Italy, it is on car listening which is dominating. And the evolution of technology is now making this arrival of online services and the ability of having hybrid services, which is really reshaping the industry in many ways. And this reshaping of the industry is also linked to the fact that you are, in a way, obliged to be in a cross-platform situation. And what our members are discovering, for example, is the fact that by having a linear broadcasting channel, you also are very good at increasing and improving your discoverability and cross-promotion for all kinds of contents that you can be developing. So that's one element that is becoming really important. And so your presence on all possible supports from fixed reception to mobile reception, to be able to be also on mobile phones and to be able to be on any sort of end user device brings the idea that you need to be able also to deliver in a sustainable way content to different infrastructures, and most probably combining the broadcast and the unicast services to cover 100% of the population, but also 100% of the territory, which is another challenge in itself. Then the arrival of personalized services is another element that is developing, and I'm always speaking about this asymptotic view of the zero button solution where your radio will know what you want. Then there is the immersive content that is also arriving, and also all the technologies that are bringing new ways of producing, and the possibility of going live directly from the place where things are happening on a very simple way. And this is improving the way and the quality of which is delivered. And the digital first is also another element that is fundamental, which is bringing the population to young population to look better for on-demand podcast content more than the live ones. So these are the challenges and the solutions that are happening at the moment, but I can say more maybe in a second moment. Thank you.
And excellent. That's a great contextualization. And I've even made a note. Your radio will know what you want. There's no way we don't want to hear about. We want to hear about that desperately, all of us. Let's get to you, Paul. Tell us about. I mean, you have clients around the world. When you're engaging with them, what do you find that their greatest need appears to be?
Yeah, no, Omar, I think I agree with everything that Antonio and Judith said. It's amazing to me when we deal with clients all over the world that their needs are really the same. We're seeing a fragmentation not only of advertising share, we're also seeing a fragmentation of just media because there's just so many options available to the consumer. And specifically from a standpoint of how do we use technology to grow listenership, distribution is no longer the competitive advantage. I mean, radio had a distribution advantage for many, many years. And now obviously there's no barriers to entry for new competitors and entrants to be able to produce content and distribute it across multiple platforms. And so really content is king. And I think using that compelling, unique content and creating that content is so imperative for radio's future to continue to thrive. I often look at what's happening in the video space, and they coined the phrase a few years ago at the Consumer Electronics Show. They said consumers will use the best available screen to consume content, and that might be your smartphone if you're out of your home. If you're in your home, it could be your 55-inch TV. And I think the same thing is happening with audio right now. Consumers want to be able to consume that if it's over a linear FM stream because that's the best available medium for them to consume it because they're in their car, or if it's on demand, those lines are blurring on the distribution platforms. And so I think digital extension is really important for the clients we talk to, being able to take their content, be able to make it available in a time shifted format and make it extensible across all platforms and all devices. And I think at the same time, being able to more effectively compete for share of ad spend is so important, just because there's so many different competing ad vehicles now for advertisers, and being able to demonstrate that response and that success is imperative.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. Let's deal with this big issue that you're all talking about. So Antonio, you quite correctly, and very succinctly put it around the fact that you have to be on every platform. In fact, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, one of the great marketing institutes out of Australia, says that you have to win share of mind and you have to be completely accessible. I mean, they say it far better than I do. They call it mental availability and physical availability. And the physical availability is about breadth and depth of distribution in both space and time. However, and I know that everybody's doing this, so everybody's making sure they're on the mobile phone because this device has revolutionized our lives. But just being there isn't necessarily a win. You have to be there. That's a given. So that's what we're saying. As far as distribution goes, you have to be. Is technology available, though, to foreground this? Because you're competing. I don't know how many screens of apps I now have. And that's probably because I'm lazy to cull them. So, 4 or 5, it just goes on and on and on. And then the radio option is just yet another. Maybe I've got 5 different radio stations that I want to stream on top. And then I've got Spotify, and then I've got et cetera, et cetera. How does technology or software make it more, maybe that's not technology's job, but is there something that makes radio more prominent as a choice, particularly for younger people who are probably going for the TikTok option, are probably going and watching YouTube, definitely on Instagram? What do we have apart from, I mean, I guess it's a content question, but is there something from a technology side? Let me start with you, Antonio, then I'll go to Udit.
Yeah, I mean, there are several answers to this, and there is not a single one. I mean, you need to be on all possible support as much as you can, so that people can discover you and the young audience, but all the audiences, because, and this is a bit the idea of also of the personalized services and the recommendation engine. I mean, the recommendation engine is not meant to be something that is closing you in a bubble. It's something that allows you to discover new things. And this is a fundamental element. And broadcasting and linear is interesting because it will drive you to discover new things much more than the online one, on demand, where you are looking for the content on a proactive basis. So this combination of personalization and presence on different platforms, I think, is key for helping you being present and being visible on the different platforms. Then there is the element which is linked to the way in which you deliver and the way in which you deliver on a sustainable basis, because of course all this has got a cost. So you need to find solutions that could go across all different platforms. Some solutions are vertical, some other solutions are also that you can exchange them. And so this is all to do with all the integration, for example, in 5G networks and what we are doing for media in general there, so that you are getting content from different sources in a seamless way, and also with a sustainable cost, overall cost, combining the broadcasting ability, the unicast part, and the local intelligent storage. That's another fundamental element that is going to develop in the coming months and years, is the ability to store content locally and be able to consume that content and be able to access that content in a much easier and sustainable way from the economical point of view also.
Udit, give us some insights in terms of what you're doing in India around this and how to be, make a difference on the phone, because there's just so much choice available at the touch of a finger.
Yeah, so I would say we have to think digital. It's not just about the phone. It's about your phone. It's about being on Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It's about being on your connected devices inside the home. It's about being on smart TVs. See, the distribution mediums will keep on changing, but one core parent medium, which is digital, it would stay, because that is one form which connects all the things together. So the sense is, one, you have to be everywhere, and second, it has to be a concept where how much can you shift focus from the old school of eyeballs to share of mind. Because when you open this piece of device, and I'll be honest, and I'm not supporting any brand or something, but there are people spend 80% of the time on 4 apps. These 4 to 5 apps which are consuming 80% of your time may change from country to country. One might be some social media, second might be some chat related, third might be some video, and the fourth would be search. And they consume 80% of your time. But the beauty of audio and of radio is that, boss, it's passive consumption. It can be consumed while all these apps are being operated in parallel. It's a medium which can be consumed when you're actually going to bed, but it's also a medium to which you can wake up to. So technology is helping us solve these problems in India. Then, and I would say not just in India, in most of the South Asian places, because that's an open market. Everybody's been focusing a lot on video, a lot on other mediums, but audio is an open space where sky is actually a limit.
Now, obviously, when Antonio, when you speak about, and I'm going to come to you now, Paul, but just wanted to take up from what Antonio said earlier about, linear being able to bring the mass audience to the opportunities for discovery. There's surely a short runway there. We can do all of that right now when we still have audiences of scale. Some radio stations, others are constantly losing them, shutting down. Time spent listening is contracting everywhere in the world. So this is a very short horizon that we have to take advantage of these audiences. Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in the U.S., radio still reaches 87% of the population on a weekly basis. So it's the number one reach medium. And to your point, we still have to use the power of that reach and the power of the megaphone, if you will, to kind of drive action. But I think going back to, things that some of the other panelists shared is that, we have to be, distribution has to be ubiquitous. And some of these other platforms, podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they shouldn't be looked as threats. They should be looked at as opportunities for product sampling. The other thing is I heard the word discovery, and I think content discovery is so important because I think that is going to be both, again, the number one challenge and the number one goal of audio publishers to be discovered, right, in this new ecosystem. If I go to my smart speaker right now, or my digital assistant, and I ask it to play podcasts on cryptocurrency, right? How does that algorithm determine what content to play? Well, my content has to be on that platform and it has to be digitized and discoverable. And so what we're seeing is, AI is really enabling a lot of content discoverability. Look at what Google did for HTML, and to go down memory lane, even before Google, we had Alta Vista and web crawler and search engines and spiders that went out and indexed all of the world's HTML and made it discoverable, which was the basis for all sorts of use cases, not only for being able to discover content, but for targeted ad delivery and recommendation and so forth. And so we're starting to see the same thing, I think, in audio, is we're indexing that content, we're transcribing it, we're going and using topical and entity extraction to determine the prevalence of what's being talked about it, and then we can take that metadata, make it available on platforms so that not only is it discoverable by search and recommendation engines, but it can feed the algorithms as well too. And I think that's a huge opportunity for broadcasters in this next decade.
But Antonio, as you consider the growth of options and what you need to be doing, let's just take from Paul this idea of tagging, the metadata. New resources are needed in radio businesses to do this, but budgets are finite. So who gives way so that, and I know this is a controversial question, but we're here not to avoid the tough questions. Who gives way so that these new resources, new skills, new thinking that's necessary can start to change the business?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that to feed all these new ideas and these machineries, you need to grow revenues, because in a way, you need to be able to finance your future and create your future. And the two things are tightly linked, because the technology helps you maybe generating new revenues, and the new revenues help you creating new options. So this could come, as it was said, from targeted advertising, and I would imagine this combined with the intelligent local cache and the recommendation engine, as it has been said. But this can also be providing new premium services in which, for example, you can get rid of the ads, and you can have an option to consume content which is ads-free. This can be also using new financing mechanism. And as you see, I'm combining every time the technology novelty with the source of revenues. And new financing mechanisms could come from, for example, from producing new contents, using NFT-based systems, for example, for stimulating new productions, and using the tools, the technology tools, to also remunerate your new ideas. This could be done, for example, by exploiting the minds that many broadcasters have got, which are archives with full of concerts, interviews, documentaries, etc. This is like a sort of mind which is unexploited, and maybe with all the AI and new functionalities, and maybe also some more imaginative way of commercially approaching the problem, there is a new area where you can develop. I like to speak about this, for example, when I think of immersive audio, and when I think of the possibility, I like to say coloring audio, and make it from stereo to full immersive, and create a new offer using what you have in your archives, or what the best products that you could use. And then, of course, you can have better analytics that help you create more value, because you know better your audience and you adapt to your audience in a better way. And then it could also be through partnerships with the automotive market, for example, that wants to have some unique content for their customers. and so on. I mean, there are plenty of possibilities, and the two things go together. I mean, you need ideas to create a new source of revenues, and you need to use the revenues to create new ideas. So this all works a bit in a circle.
So, Udit, how are you creating these new revenues to support the extra investment you have to make? Critically, it's so obvious, in order to compete effectively. What are you doing differently?
I think the first and the foremost thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to cover the demand supply mismatch. There's a lot of supply of inventory available, but the demand, because of the clients not being as evolved, is not as much. So we're first trying to cover up the demand supply mismatch so that people start realizing the power of audio, and specifically the power of audio in any form, whether it's in the form of podcasts or it's in the form of music or it's in any other form. So I think we're trying to do that. That being one. And apart from that, I think the other important bit is we need to have options for innovations. And innovations would run not just on the tech part. So there's a lot of work going on the AI side, and there is no reason why we shouldn't have proper NFT integrations for audio. It's a must. It's an absolute must. I feel it's an absolute must for every digital asset which exists. But innovation even in on the monetization side, most of the monetization happening right, most of the innovation in fact happening right now is more on the creative side. This has to move to a tech and product based innovation setup, which would help us revolutionize the market. I mean, why is it not possible that if I'm going for a run in the morning, and when I'm listening to music, whenever I pass a shop and using my Apple Watch, they know that my perspiration level is high, and whenever I'm passing through a shop which is selling Coke, I get a signal that why not buy a Coke? There's a discount going on here just in the audio that I'm listening to, without being intrusive at the same time, right? So I mean, the opportunity is immense with passive consumption, which can be solved through audio, and that's what we're trying to achieve. And I know the road is long, but not too long, because I feel every medium has a phase, and the phase for audio has come. So yeah.
And who's inventing this stuff that you're talking about? Because it sounds exceptional. That's contextual advertising. Some of it does exist, maybe in a still relatively new or immature form. Who's creating that? Who's inventing that? Are you inventing it yourself, Udit?
We're trying to work in that direction, because that's an opportunity. I mean, I'm sure we won't be able to invent it in a day's time, but we're definitely trying to move in that move in that direction, so that that opportunity can be created. But first and foremost, you need to cover up the demand supply mismatch. We're trying to cover up that, because as soon as we're trying to we're able to reduce it, that's when the investment comes to move in the side of innovation, so on and so forth. But I'm saying at an opportunity level, it's a virgin territory, right? Well, grab it.
Paul, the demand supply mismatch that Udit talks about, I mean, that was why ad tech went into selling your inventory online through automation. But what was the risks are lowest price through real time bidding, etc. There are dangers to that, but it does help solve that particular supply issue, does it not? But what are the risks? And is that the best way? And are there better ways?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And look, I think there's been a maturation, right, with digital inventory and digital audio, and that, in the early days, it was almost unfathomable that people actually devalued digital audio, even though that it was more customizable, more targetable, more measurable, right? And today, I think we're starting to see that pendulum swim back the other way, because obviously, if I can measure it better, if I could target it better, if I can do all these things, there's real value there. So I think that, we're seeing that digital money that used to be also spent exclusively on digital is coming to digital audio, right? Which is super valuable as well too. But I think to some of the points that were made, and I completely agree with Udit, is that innovation that absolutely has to have on the monetization. So it has to happen. Everyone thinks they know everything there is to know about radio because it's been around for 100 years, right? And in that time, maybe it hasn't innovated as fastly as it could have. There's the old joke that when you buy radio, you get an invoice. When you buy digital, you get data. And I think that's a key thing here, is that it's a lot more easy now using different technologies and AI out there to actually show the effectiveness in terms of audio, even linear audio, and also the response to what consumers are doing. Are they visiting a website after they hear an ad within an aperture of time? Are they taking an action? Are we counting all of the earned media inside of that audio? Because radio does such a great job as a lean back medium of integrating endorsements and native advertising and sponsorships and billboards right in the programming. Are we capturing that and counting it towards the value? Because when you do capture all those things, you do actually see that the value that radio drives, both in terms of the effective cost per thousand, the engagement, and the response is very, very impressive.
Antonio, when we think about this issue of measurement, which Paul alluded to just now, it's how we sell our medium. We've got X many audiences, or in these segments, etc. I mean, the problem with measurement is that it's not real time, and therefore increasingly those who can see other media using real time information start to doubt the credibility of radio. Are we ever going to get to a point where, one, we're not bleeding audiences because our measurement tends not to be in real time, so we don't see them when they go to, they're listening through other devices, etc. It's all based on recall. The sample sizes are tiny. All of these things are hindrances to the success and the sustainability of radio.
I mean, this has to do with the all IP approach. I mean, the thing is that, and that's what I was referring before. If we are moving, as we are moving progressively to an all IP approach, the ability to measure in real time a large part of the audience in their consumption on an IP network will provide the same level of information that you will get on any other service that is provided online. Now, this does not mean that you cannot do broadcast, because you can do broadcast and at the same time get the audience measurements. There is a sort of misperception that broadcast is just for pure live vertical, and online IP is only for, say, IP, internet delivered content, etc. In reality, you can do broadcast over IP, and we are working, for example, on the 5G broadcast as a future standard that will be available on all mobile phones, all cars, etc., whereby you have a combination of a broadcast system that is optimizing the cost for you and the reach for having millions of people that can profit of the same transmission at the same time when is demanded, and at the same time the unicast connection that you will have in all IP devices that will provide for knowing who is watching what, when, and how. And the combination of the two is the best of both worlds, because you can provide reach, guarantee quality, reduce cost, and have this ability to measure in real time, and through this serve your audience, and through this be able to know what your customers want and help them find what they want best, and help serve the chunks of the audience that are the young audience, but also the over 65, but also the people, for example, that are non-native people of a specific country, where you want to provide something in a different way, for example, with translation or subtitles or anything that could help in this process. So definitely the long-term vision is the one where all services will be going to IP, but in the meantime, the hybrid version will provide enough information in terms of measurements to help the broadcast part be as knowledgeable and as in real time as any other distribution network.
Antonio, you give me so much hope when you speak about these opportunities and possibilities, because I haven't really heard anyone say that these things can be done. But how far away is it? And will we survive long enough to get there? Because everything, the pressures are on today.
Yeah, it's not so far away, in the sense that think, for example, what we are doing at the level of the 5G MAG, the Media Action Group there. We have been working on the implementation of 5G broadcasting on mobile phones. And now, exactly in these days, Qualcomm on one side and the Huawei people in China, they are coming with solutions that are embedding the broadcast functionalities together with the 5G unicast functionality. And you will see it in the coming months. Most probably, if you come at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona at the end of February, you will find that these functionalities are already in the chip. And once it's in the chip and this becomes another functionality which is seamless that you can use, then you have all the advantages. Because then if I need to transmit a live event and I have millions of people, I will do it live. I will do it transmitting it in broadcast. Why should I dimension my cellular network for a peak in traffic that I can serve with a technology that uses the law of physics where they work much better? On the contrary, when I need to recover information on the audience, when I need to use this for an interactive part, then I will use the unicast. So it is better for the operators, the mobile operator, it is better for the broadcasters, and at the end of the day, it's better for everybody. And look, even there is a third layer, which is the satellite one, and there I'm thinking of SiriusXM. SiriusXM is quite a unique example, but if you look, it's the typical example where they go multi-layer, they deliver on any support, and guess what? They are extremely successful, and they have a pay solution that they are delivering, and they get $8 billion revenues per year, probably one of the biggest stations, radio stations in the world, because they are so future. Of course, it took 20 years to arrive to the point where they are today, but still, it's an interesting model that we can take into account when we think of the future. So the future is there. The future is a combination of the present, from FM to DAB, all the rest, but we need to prepare for what will come next, because we will not be able to switch from one to the other. And our ability to promote the new technologies should be starting now, otherwise we'll be too late.
We need a huge young population in India. Every one of them has a mobile phone. It's the primary device without question. Is there a point at which FM becomes obsolete there and everything's done via IP?
So you're partially correct, but I'd say that we don't imagine a point where FM would become obsolete in India, looking at the population of India and the penetration that FM has. We definitely feel that the growth won't be as much as it was in the past years, because the middle India that FM reaches out to is massive. It's immense. But at the same time, the growth that we will observe on digital would be huge, absolutely huge. And I would say it's not just a case for audio. If you're not on digital, whether it is an FM or it is a linear channel on TV, their growth will diminish. They will stop growing, they would stagnate. So, yeah, I mean, as far as FM is concerned, it would definitely not get as much growth. But digital, the growth would be immense, because the digital would become the most consumed medium. In fact, right now also, maximum consumption comes in cars. In metro cities, the maximum consumption is in cars, and cars are now completely digital. If you're not digital, you're missing that high net value audience who you were reaching out to earlier and are not able to reach out now just because you're not digital. So, yeah.
Paul, the vision again that Antonio paints, I mean, like I said, as a radio, born and bred radiophile, it's incredibly exciting, but I worry about the components that are meant to drive us to that particular nirvana, if I can use that, for radio. When you think about how radio is run in certain markets, 20 minutes of advertising, sticking to the old ways of doing things, you need, in order to get to this, you need investment. You need the scale of global radio players all saying, we'll participate. We're partners in this. This is critical to our future sustainability. What do you see when you talk to clients around the world? Are they willing to put their money where their mouth is, to use an old cliche?
Yeah, I think, look, it's definitely a dilemma. It's a challenge because there's a status quo, if you will, for the industry to kind of protect based on those long stop sets and the revenue. And in some ways, some of these new technologies have to be a little bit of a loss leader initially until the audience is built and the audience is migrated. My fear personally, though, is that if, as an industry, we don't take those steps, someone from outside the industry will take them for us. I mean, look what's happened with the innovation, right, in just music programming. That did not come from within the industry itself. Spotify has transformed how music is consumed, and it's really married both a lean forward and a lean back experience, because I can have either one of those experiences. I can have curated playlists for me, or I can lean forward and actually pick the music I want to hear. But look at the global footprint of Spotify right now. And I think that we're going to continue to see innovation and a blurring of the lines between what radio's done really well, which is live localized content, and what the digital distribution platforms, which have been non-live but very personalized content with lots of choice and customization. And you're going to see those two things come together, with live content starting to be integrated within customized music content for you. So I think this is an opportunity for the industry to step forward. As far as the investment, and I think Antonio mentioned this a little bit, I think everyone's afraid, hey, what does this cost? So, what is the going to be the cost, not only in terms of CapEx, OpEx, but also just the time and effort to kind of develop some of these new technologies. Antonio, you mentioned translation, and that's a really interesting one for me, because that's an opportunity today that has a really low break-even point to take compelling content we have and make it available in other languages to create extension and to reach new audiences. So, for instance, here in the U.S., Spanish is the second most widely spoken language in the United States. I think there's 40 million plus Spanish speakers. So we're starting to see really popular podcasts, sports programs, things like that, that are programmatically translating that audio into Spanish using synthetic voices, right? So there's no human touch. And for a few dollars an hour, so the break-even point is very low, they're able to create an entirely new version of that show or podcast in a different language to reach new audiences and be able to monetize that. And so these are the types of things and steps that broadcasters can start to do today, low investment, high return, to really start to innovate for the future.
Antonio, do you find among your large community of members that there is the appetite? Because, if it's, I know you deal with public service media, but this is for the future of radio. It's not just the public services. The commercial operations in some countries make a lot more money than the public service guys, billions rolling in overall. Is there a willingness? And does the EBU, when it charts these paths, look for those shareholders to co-invest in these opportunities in order to speed them up? Or how are you funded to operate all of this?
Yeah.
Because funding is capital is an issue. It always is.
Yeah, it is. Definitely there is, we are looking to the future, and we are looking to the future together with our members. And we need to do it, because we are, if we don't, we will not be able to do this, say, on a competitive basis. I must say that public service broadcasters are leaders in all the markets in Europe. And for this reason, we have a very good image and a very good presence in the market. But at the same time, we are preparing ourselves to stay leaders for the future. And this is where the bet on new technologies is fundamental. Now, we are working together. Yes, Paul was mentioning, for example, translation. We have launched, I launched 3 years ago when I arrived. One of the first projects I launched is called Eurovox. It's exactly an open API platform where we are using different tools, AI tools for doing speech-to-text, text-to-text translation, and so on. And this is being used in platforms by our members to convert, translate content in either offline or in real time. And this is opening a full set of new possibilities. For example, we have a pilot platform with 20 of our members, from BBC and RAI to the smaller members, that are exchanging news and that are translating news in their native languages and putting this at the disposal of their end customers. And even we have a service which is called the European Perspective, where we provide content to the end users of 11 members on their OTT platforms in the languages that they are. So we are using these tools, and we are working on these new technologies as much as we can. We are working with car manufacturers to see how to integrate all these new services in their cars. We are working on the distribution technologies to combine the broadcast and the unicast and the various layers in such a way that we can have a better offer for the user. So we are active in all these areas. And this is necessary because we need to stay at the edge of what is feasible. There will be more competition for the future. Content is available globally when you are online, so big players will raise their presence, and it's important to have local content, it's important to have live content, but you need to be always at the edge of what is feasible, and this is the way in which you can guarantee that you will be able to deliver the best offer to your customers.
You talked earlier, Antonio, and you said maybe we can get to it later, and I want to get to it now. You talked about storing content locally and how critical that was.
Yeah.
Will you explain more what you mean?
Yeah. The basic idea is the following. The most expensive part of your exercise is producing interesting content, is producing quality content. And what you do on normal online services today is that you wait then for your customers to come and fetch this content from your place and discover this content and get it to where they are. And this is interesting when when you are on the long tail and when the content is a relatively, small content. But when you produce something really of value, it is better to think in the idea that you take this content and you deliver it to the whole population and you store it locally at the edge of the network. This can be on the nodes of the network, for example, of an IP network like a 5G network or even a terrestrial wired network, but is also on cars, on buildings, on homes. The basic idea is that in these kind of devices already you have tens of gigabytes, if not hundreds of gigabytes these days of storage that you can use, taking advantage of the fact that you deliver the content, you use recommendation engines at the level of the end device, and you filter the content that you already know may be of interest for the end user. This reduces the cost for the delivery of content because you do use the one-to-many advantage. And at the same time, by using the local intelligence, you can also optimize the overall cost and the overall impact in sustainability terms for the delivery of content. So I expect that in the area of radio, but also in other areas, from games to TV broadcasting, this idea of combining broadcast with local storage and intelligent edge net nodes combined with unicast will represent the real sustainable solution for the medium to long term. And that's another area in which we are working.
Udit, I want to come to you now. None of us here, we're all, well, apart from me probably, who knows the least, but you guys are steeped in technology. You're all, digital first in the way that you think. I want to pose an HR question. Is radio attractive enough to the smartest people working in this space that they come to you when they're looking for jobs? Because I know, or I think, or I feel that it's Google, it's Microsoft, it's Meta, which is what they're called now. That's where all of the smartest people working in the digital space want to migrate to. Is that going to be a risk? When I listen to Antonio talk, we're going to need people like that to help drive that innovation, drive that change, make this business different from what it is and what we've known in the past. Will they come?
So I principally feel yes, because what typically happens is Google does too many things at too many times. It's not always Google that attracts people. It's the innovative project that they're working on which attracts. Like you speak of Meta or Metaverse. It's not Facebook attracting people. It's the technology and the concept of Metaverse which is attracting people. So is the case in case of audio. There has been so much of overcrowding in case of video, in case of normal text, in case of other lead-based products in digital, that audio was left in the corner. And suddenly audio started rising because everybody realized that the time for observing the screens is passing by. It's the time for passive consumption which has been left absolutely open, and the opportunity is immense. So yes, absolutely, if you say would people be attracted towards radio, I'm saying I'm not sure. But if you say would people be attracted towards audio, they are already getting attracted towards audio, and people and digital talent have started moving in that direction.
Okay. Yeah, I hope everybody else feels the same way. If you don't, you need to chip in and say, "Yeah, I think we could do more, or we need to, make ourselves more sexy." Antonio, Paul, if you want to contribute to that discussion.
Yeah. You see, the thing is that there is another element that I think is attractive is the combination of technology and creativity at the same time. What we are trying to do in the teams in which we are working with our members is always to combine creative people with the plumbers, because the two are really able to magnify the end result if they work together. I'm old enough to remember when we started with pirate radios in Italy in the mid 70s. I was a kid, I was 13, 14, and I started a radio in my little village on the countryside house during the summer. And what was funny was not only to put together the bits and pieces and make it work, but was to be part of the creative part, was also to be part of collecting the money to fund the development of radio, etc. So all this is a challenge that for talents, for people that have got ideas, in radio and audio, you can be in a kindergarten kind of position, helping creating your ideas, developing your ideas, and making this real in a way that is much more difficult in television or in the metaverse, where you need a big team of people that work together. So I'm not only I'm positive about the fact that radio could be one, but I think that radio remains a media that is extremely sexy from the point of view that you can combine creativity and technology together.
Yeah, I can relate to Antonio. I mean, I think that radio is stepping to itself again. Audio is stepping to itself. I mean, I'm going to date myself, but when I got involved in the business, again, there was no Google, there was no .com, and to be part of broadcasting was so sexy. I mean, to be behind the scenes of creating the technology and distributing the content was so neat. But it's funny that this question was asked because I had lunch last week with someone at the second largest broadcaster in the U.S., and he had no radio experience. He had recently joined this company from Comcast. And the reason he joined is because of all of the things that they're doing to invest in a new platform, which is going to be a completely new consumer experience online, marrying their linear over-the-air broadcast with their digital content. And he thought this was exciting to be building something new. And I think a lot of the new talent has come in on the digital and podcasting side. I mean, that is really exciting and sexy for a lot of the new talent to go to is the companies that are building these massive online distribution platforms. I mean, these influencers are more popular than a lot of the traditional personalities that we would deem as successful for some of the younger generations who are a little bit more tech savvy. So we definitely see a lot of innovation and a lot of recruitment being successfully executed in those platforms.
Okay, before I go to the next question, just a reminder from a housekeeping perspective, make sure your alert pings are off, and that because I can hear somebody's coming through from time to time. Let me challenge you with this now. As you look at the environment, technology in particular, what do you think that's come before last couple of years? And I'm not talking about the internet or the mobile phone, right? Because those are obvious ones. Have you seen something that is so special that excites you right now, today? And then the question after that is going to be, what must happen in the next 3 years from a technology point of view? And Antonio, you've dealt with a lot of it. You actually brought it to the fore, which sort of stole my thunder because this question might be irrelevant, but I'm going to ask Udit and Paul to think about it as well. So what today is, I know people like to use the term game changer, but what today is really great to support radio as a technology that you're seeing, hearing about, aware of, and what must come in the next 3 years to really change the game? I start with you, Udit.
So, I would say having as much innovation available on audio as much we have on video. I started off with this, and I'll again touch that point. I mean, right from the smallest thing, to give you an example, we're not able to support programmatic on linear and on digital on audio system in a cohesive fashion. That's a very basic thing. Why don't we have it? Why can't we have it? It's important. Similarly, Antonio was referring. Uh, Personalization is a must in every aspect of life right now. Whether it's your mobile screen, whether it's the car you drive, whether it's the room you enter, everything is personalized. So, personalization along with AI would play a very, very major role as far as the next set of things for audio are concerned. I think apart from audio, if you ask me, the other thing which would be big, which is a game changer, is NFT and the VR setups. I'm not so much excited by AI, augmented reality, but VR definitely, along with NFT, would have a very, very major impact in the way we live and the way we address things.
Antonio, we haven't mentioned VR until Udi spoke about it. Is there a case for it? Because we get excited. Google got excited about Google Glass, where we don't even talk about it anymore. Is lots of things come along and then they go away? 3D in cinema. What in your view is an opportunity when it comes to VR with radio?
Yeah, I mean, VR and immersivity in general, it has been quite deceiving at the level of 3D glasses, as you said, etc., because it's a limitation to your freedom, I would call it. I mean, I feel sick after 10, 15 minutes. So I'm not so excited of putting something on my head to get sick. So that's not really interesting for me. On the contrary, on audio, there are possibilities that are not yet exploited. I've been producing, for example, the last two Eurovision Song Contests with the immersive multi-channel audio using next generation audio. You know, we've been very active there with the renderers and the standard ITU level, etc. The thing is that I've not yet seen, the switch when people say, okay, now we do it, and now I will provide you with binaural on your headphones. I will provide you immersive with your sound bar at home, and I will provide you in the car, etc. All this is totally feasible. It is just a matter of switching from one to the other. So that's one element. The other element, we speak about VR. We are working, for example, with several members on the video side. Nowadays, with the iPhone 12 or more, you can do VR capturing. You can use the LiDAR that is inside, and you can have avatars that are translated into people that are moving, etc. But this is on the video side. But on the audio side, you can also do interesting things like what is called synthetic radio. You can take text and you can generate your radio programming using a very narrow bandwidth to feed different personalized experiences for different people. All this was already in the mind of people 20 years ago. I remember patents from XM or Sirius, the one or the other, that were looking in that direction. Times technology-wise are mature for this, but there is more on the creative side. How do I exploit those technologies? How do I make it into a success? How do I generate the audience that goes with it? And this is where the real element of change is. I can invent, as we did for immersive audio, all possible solutions, but now we need to have an offer that does make sense. And likewise for all the other innovations. So, and this is one of the things that is at the bridging from technology to delivery into operations is exactly the difficult part of the exercise, where you need to be inventive, you need to be courageous to launch yourself, but you need also to be having a feeling of what people will like to have on the other side. You cannot do it through a market search because nobody knows what it is because they've not been using it. I mean, Steve Jobs used to say this all the time. I need to invent something and push it into the market because nobody knows. When I bought the first iPod with touch screen, I'd never seen it before. When I saw it, I said, I want it. So that's the kind of process that we are going to have. And that's where we need to be imaginative and make maybe quick mistakes, and then from quick mistakes we can progress. And this is this agile way that we are all trying to work today. Instead of discussing for 3 years, try it and then see what happens. It's so much easier and much more rewarding than discussing for years and years.
You're quite right. Martin Childs, who's one of the delegates that's watching this particular conference, has sent a question through. What technology would the panel suggest a new radio station investigate and invest in now? So starting up a radio station, what technology would you investigate or invest in immediately? That's absolutely essential. Any one of you can take this. Please feel free.
I mean, I would say, from day one, that new radio station would want to start to index and archive its content. So much of that content, if it just vaporizes into thin air after it's distributed linearly, is a lost opportunity. And once the content is transcribed, it has topical analysis, it's going to empower so many future use cases for the things like discovery we're talking about, for monetization, programmatic monetization, and really for being able to recycle that content for future use and engagement.
Anybody else want to contribute to that particular question from Martin?
Maybe we can involve somebody in an NFT-based production scheme for radio. I mean, experiment this is not far away. I mean, it can be done, and this can increase enormously the footprint of people that can help you in delivering interesting content.
Did you have a view?
Yeah, I would actually second Antonio on this. NFT is the way to go. There is no reason if you're opening something new, you shouldn't be an NFT. You should be an NFT. You should be protecting the content. You should be having a dedicated repo, and please be digital from day one. Think digital first and then linear. I think that's the way to go. And as we were discussing earlier, fail fast. There's nothing wrong in failing fast. But yeah, take the first step.
For anyone saying NFT, what is it? What does it stand for?
It's non-fungible tokens. I mean, it's the way in which you can create virtual funding systems that can help you funding your content on one side, and on the other side distribute and collect with micro payments or macro value along the value chain all the steps that are in the industry at a sustainable cost. That's what it is in a nutshell. Then if we want to enter into the details, we need to have a few conferences. But
no, of course. Very important though, because we sometimes forget that our audiences are global, and some of them may not know this terminology. So necessary, certainly, to.
And in fact, it helps you. It helps you protect your content as well, because as Paul said, that you need to have proper indexing. Most of the content that is created for radio stations is lost, and you don't know who's reusing it and how he's reusing it. If you have an NFT integrated, anyone who's reusing it is funding into your whole system. So the content created once has fungible value for lifetime, and that's what you're trying to create, which is the long tail, which you miss most of the times.
Fantastic. Paul, we never got to you explaining your view on an amazing sort of technology available now that you think is really critical, and then what's necessary 2 to 3 years from now that ensures the longevity of this medium that so many of us absolutely love.
Yeah, I think personalization is going to be key. I think that look, I'm a user of the Google News app, and what I like about that is it looks at my web behavior, what I like, and it curates a whole bunch of content for me to create flow. And for those of you who aren't familiar with flow, it's a form of engagement where you kind of lose the sense of time. You get so zoned in, next thing you know, you're scrolling and clicking. And I think really that's what's going to be key for audio too. When I'm able to have content that's curated for me based on my interests, based on my behavior, based on my first party data as well, and then also ads that are targeted to that together, both terms of music, local content, spoken content, all in one place. I think that's going to be key for the industry in the future.
Thank you so much. What an extraordinary session. I think so. Hopefully the people watching think it was enormously valuable. I thought, gentlemen, you were just amazing in terms of the valuable insights that you provided in terms of the depth of knowledge that you have. It sounds to me, when I look at you as a panel, that radio is in good hands. And maybe I wasn't able to say that at 2 minutes to 2 o'clock CET, but now I can. So thank you, Udit, Antonio, Paul. Thank you, Veritone, for sponsoring this particular session. I really think that if people haven't watched this, this is one that needs to be shared very widely, and I hope you will do the same. Thank you. Excellent, excellent work. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.